business and the owners have decided to dispense of its services.
Yeah, I think, Simon, we've known, haven't we, that there has been this split in the camp ever since really sort of Bahrain last year, where Jos Verstappen came out and said it's all chaos. Christian needs to leave. It can't continue if Christian stays. He survived that, just like he survived so many controversies. I mean, the Piranha Club of Formula One team bosses is well known, and Christian was the longest serving after, of course, the death of the great Sir Frank Williams. Christian was the longest serving team boss in Formula One, appointed in 2005. So, as you say, for 20 years. And in that real, well, it's a Piranha Club, the cutthroat world of the team bosses. You make friends, you make enemies. It remained to be seen how long he was going to take before it was the piranhas, the other piranhas that ate him up. But in the end, it seems to be the Helmut Marko, the Oliver Mintzlaff side, the Austrian side of the business, backed by Jos Verstappen, and we assume Max Verstappen, have won in the power struggle. And they've managed to convince whatever backers Christian had in the team, whether it was the 51% owners of Red Bull, the Nvidia family, that it just wasn't tenable for him to carry on. What it was related to, was it related to the car's performance? Was it related to the fact that Max is out of the World Championship? Was it related to anything else? Will come out in time. And then, of course, what happens to Christian Horner next? It's not by any means certain that he's out of Formula One, isn't he, Simon? We'll come to that. But it is pretty shocking that it's happened, because he was just such a big name and a long-serving name in the sport.
Before I get into the timeline of how it happened, and that it starts, as you rightly pointed out, probably with the death of Dietrich Mateschitz, which was late 2022. I actually remember us all being on air when that happened in Austin, Martin, and you finding that out then. Let's just focus, if we could, on the success in the 20 years. As you said, you count him as a friend, and he came from Arden. He was desperate to get into Formula One, and then together with recruiting Adrian Newey and a great team, he built this thing out of what was Jaguar, and turned it into the huge sprawling campus in Milton Keynes, now with an engine department. You have to just take your hat off, first of all, and say what a great job, obviously, he did there at Red Bull during his time and everything that he built.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you go down what is now closed road on the industrial estate, he's moved it from one building with lots of mezzanines into, along with how Formula One's developed in that time. I think, what we're seeing now is the sort of maverick talisman team leader. They've become such massive enterprises now that it's all changing, and you see James Vowles running Williams, you see Jonathan Wheatley, TP at Sauber Audi, for example, and Andreas Stella, a team principal, and what a job he's doing at McLaren. So we've got a division of the responsibility, because the teams have become so big. But along the way, Christian, I mean, he's created a bit of trouble along the way, in terms of he's always had plenty to say and poking, but that's his job. You've got to slow the opposition down and speed your team up. But I can't help but think the wheels started to come off when Dietrich Mateschitz died, and to all intents and purposes, I think he's been a passenger as well since Bahrain last year, when that news came out, and the tail's been wagging the dog a bit, because obviously Team Verstappen have been briefing certain journalists, and Christian's just come more and more under pressure, and he lost key people like Adrian Newey, like Rob Marshall, like Jonathan Wheatley. I think his failing on that was convincing himself and trying to convince everybody else that they weren't really doing that much anymore, and it really didn't matter. He'd got a better crew behind them, but that wasn't correct. And I think we've seen. But let's remember, this is a team that was on pole position last weekend in Silverstone, one of the toughest circuits in.
It's race week. 5 storylines we're excited about ahead of the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix from McLaren's Constructors' Championship bid to Red Bull's form. Here are the big stories ahead of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku. With the European swing of races now complete, it's time for the 2025 Formula One season to enter its final third. 16 races down, 8 still to go, and the remaining flyaway rounds kick off with a visit to Baku, which can often be a chaotic weekend. McLaren on the verge of the Constructors' Championship. So much of the focus this season has been on the battle between the two McLaren drivers, as Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris duel it out for the Drivers' Championship in what has become a two-driver race. With both performing at such a high level, 7 wins for Piastri, 5 for Norris, and 7-1-2s. Within that, the byproduct of such impressive point scoring is McLaren have a significant lead over the chasing pack in the Constructors' Championship. So significant, in fact, that they could wrap up the title this weekend in Baku. A combined finish of first and second, or first and third, would be enough for McLaren to become champions regardless of what second-place Ferrari do, while beyond that they just have to outscore the Scuderia by 9 points. If they manage to do that, then as long as they don't lose 12 points to Mercedes, or 33 points to Red Bull, then McLaren will be champions. Should the title be secured this weekend, it would mark the earliest point in a season that it has been won, with 7 rounds still remaining after the trip to Azerbaijan. Can Red Bull repeat their Monza form? Despite standing on the verge of winning a championship, McLaren were actually beaten for the first time in 6 races at Monza, and it wasn't by their nearest title chasers. Ferrari were victorious at their home race a year ago, but this time around it was Red Bull who took the win, with the result marking a significant turnaround in fortunes at Monza over the past 12 months. From being over half a minute adrift of the race winner in 2024, Max Verstappen beat the two McLarens by over 19 seconds this time around to secure his 3rd win of the season. It was Verstappen's first win since the other Italian round in Imola, a run of 9 races. While Verstappen appears too far back in the title fight to hold any realistic ambitions of his own, he could still be a major factor if Red Bull can replicate their Monza pace at any other venues. A new floor introduced last time out delivered a step forward, but both Verstappen and Red Bull pointed to setup choices as particularly significant. Baku will provide a very different challenge and was another track that Verstappen struggled at a year ago as Red Bull's form declined, so this weekend will give us further evidence of whether Monza was a one-off due to the unique track characteristics, or if McLaren could face more regular opposition from the defending champion. Antonelli's response after Wolff's comments. Italian rookie Kimi Antonelli has enjoyed very strong support from Mercedes throughout his career so far, both during his junior years and since making the step up to race for the team alongside George Russell this year. That support remains, but team principal Toto Wolff was the most critical we have heard him be towards Antonelli after the Italian Grand Prix, a race weekend that Wolff described as underwhelming. Antonelli spun off during FP2 and then struggled at times to make progress through traffic during the race itself, picking up a penalty for forcing Alex Albon off track, described by the stewards as erratic driving, as he was classified 9th. That was actually Antonelli's best result of a difficult European part of the season, with his only other score coming courtesy of a 10th place in Hungary. So the return to tracks in different parts of the world could actually mark a change in form for the 19-year-old. The last time he raced outside Europe, in Canada, he was on the podium for the first time, and the Italian has previously said he was putting too much pressure on himself to perform on European tracks he knows. Baku was a happy hunting ground in F2 for Antonelli last year as he secured a feature race podium, and offers the chance to reset after Monza. Behrman at risk of a ban. Not for the first time this season, we're entering a race weekend with a driver within just 2 penalty points of being banned for an event. And while Ollie Behrman should be reflecting positively on the anniversary of his racing debut for Haas, he is the driver who is most at risk. It was actually a race ban for Kevin Magnussen, earned when he exceeded the 12 penalty point limit at Monza a year ago, that opened the door for Behrman to drive